My dad gave me a nickname growing up. You know what it was? Get ready. Princess. The Princess nickname referred to my cushioned upbringing and complete inability to get my hands dirty. To this day, I'm not a hands-on guy, and I don't do physical labor well. So it's pretty emasculating to compare myself to my grandfathers, who are both hardworking immigrants who definitely got their hands dirty. Growing up, I was ever grateful that they paved the way for our family in Australia, not me, because I thought there's no way I could have done what they did. But I was missing a crucial point. Relativity and perspective, I suppose. Human drives work differently under different circumstances. Maybe drives isn't the best word, but we can come back to that. What I failed to appreciate was how my unique circumstances actually shaped my attitude towards work. I was needlessly harsh on myself about being a princess. I grew up going to good schools, going on lots of family holidays, and had access to almost any opportunity I could have wanted. It would not make much sense for me, growing up in these privileged circumstances, to have to do hard physical labour on building sites and farms like my grandparents did. What if everything changed? Imagine a repressive regime were implemented in Australia. Huge lockdowns, maybe, who knows? And I had to work a farm or site to provide for and support my family. What would probably happen is that after a period of some adjustment, I would find providing for my family meaningful, despite doing this work. That's not to say that this work would be enjoyable or pleasurable, but it would feel worthwhile, and often that's enough. Put it this way, when you're starving, you don't fret over career choices. In times of depression, you don't get caught up in anxiety over which career path you take, whether you should do law or science, for example, or agonize over studying abroad versus staying local. If you're starving, you don't fret over career choices. In my family, work means different things to different people. For my grandparents, work was a tool for survival. For my parents, work was about creating a comfort buffer, wanting to be well clear of the experiences of newly arrived immigrants, which they grew up in. But for my generation, having grown up in comfort and privilege, work is more about igniting passion and interest as well as helping other people. Be careful what you listen to when you hear others talk about wealth. When we go through the glossary exercise, which is another kind of blog post and future podcast episode, we point out how the same words mean different things to different people. I've noticed that people who come from materially poor or tough backgrounds place more emphasis on accruing riches and wealth. It is particularly common in immigrant families who have left materially poor lives behind and struggled financially to start a new life in a new place. It makes sense. There's nothing wrong with it. If you go days without food, you'll crave a feast, not just a light snack. The great Tony Robbins discussed this example in his book, Unleash the Power Within, which I thought was an amazing demonstration of this example. Robbins had to actually condition himself to eat less because after making some money, when his career picked up, he was overeating, overcompensating for an upbringing where he and his family didn't always have enough food. When we are used to deficiency, we long for the excess. Of course, exploring this theme is meant to establish that what people value depends very much on context and timing. This is a preface to the 3 interrelated concepts we'll be discussing in the next episodes: Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the comfort ladder, and the luxury trap. So to take a brief bit, welcome, or hopefully welcome back to the With Joe Wehbe podcast. The next 3 episodes are actually tied into one blog article called Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, the Comfort Ladder, and the Luxury Trap. Now, to continue on from the blog and what I've written about Maslow's hierarchy, Abraham Maslow was a psychologist famous for his hierarchical framework for understanding human needs. There's an appropriated example and a visual I've put in the blog post on the withjoewehbe.com website, which you can find. Hopefully I'll put in the YouTube video as well. And if you look at it, or just Google Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you'll notice that it's a pyramid shape and that there are 5 main levels. The bottom, number 1, is physiological needs. All right, so that's eating and whatnot, making sure you survive. 2 is safety needs, more about physical comfort like shelter. 3 is our belongingness and love needs, pretty self-explanatory. 4th are our esteem needs like confidence. And 5 are our self-actualization needs, which is really fulfilling and realizing our potential. As I said, they're mostly self-explanatory and they tend to build vertically on one another. For example, our physiological needs will tend to be our priority. Like I said, if I started to starve, I probably wouldn't care much about what I had to do for work because the priorities have really changed. In studies of malnourished prisoners of war and eating disorder sufferers, the body and mind tend to shut off attention for other drives like social and sexual impulses and focus more on food. Many of these persons are found to talk and focus excessively on food, as if a mechanism of evolution is acting like low power mode would on our phones, preserving all remaining energy for the vital function of recharging before concerning itself with lesser affairs. So the low power mode on our phones is a great example. When the battery life is precious and it's just got to survive and get through, it shuts off all the non-essential functions, right? It's not going to let you maybe go on Facebook or use the internet because it's about survival. But when it's full battery, it's pretty annoying to have a phone that wouldn't be able to use the internet. So I'm going to stop that there, but Maslow's hierarchy is just a very useful way of thinking about what we want/need and when we think about it, when we prioritize it. We'll talk about the rest in the next episodes. So that's the general idea, is that thanks to Maslow, hats off to him and team, understanding when we need what, or when what is a priority. So if you're listening to this, you're probably in maybe a Western country like I am, not necessarily. Shout out to my friends abroad. And you probably don't have big challenges with your physiological and safety needs. You probably sit on level 3 or 4 or 5 of Maslow's hierarchy. But some people listening to this might be on level 1 and 2. By all means, it's capable of reaching them. So we're going to care about different things. Now, it's not as simple as when I was growing up. I think this is very unhelpful. It comes a lot from religious context as well, to appreciate what you have because someone's always got it worse off. I actually think that's a really rubbish way of overcoming what you're unhappy or unsatisfied about. I think you're better off thinking about the pleasure treadmill, which we discussed before, than trying to concentrate on what other people experience, because you won't be able to keep focus on that, and everyone's experience is relative to their situation. You'll always adjust your baseline, your happiness bandwidth baseline, to what's going on now around you, no matter who you are. You're wired with Astro the dog. You're not a completely conscious logic. So I don't find that appreciate that other people have it worse than you to be very useful, because it's relative. I'd rather focus on you. So first, understand that. That's the first step for this. Just understand where you sit on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and understand that you would be behaving and feeling different if you're on a different level. So that's really all for today, just to introduce this. Go away. If you're listening to this while you're at the gym or driving or cooking or something like that, go away and look up the pyramid, understand it. As an added incentive, it's a really kind of cool thing to talk about at parties. Nice little party trick, fancy psychological concept. Not mine, so not tooting my own horn here. It's really cool, but it makes for very, very interesting conversations, because it puts in perspective why you can and should be frustrated about not having your love needs met, maybe. Doesn't mean you have to wallow in self-pity, but I think give yourself permission to be dissatisfied with the way things are, because ultimately your life is comparable to no one else's. It's an experience you're experiencing from within this little viewing box and window pane in your head. So it's not enough to settle for a subpar experience on level 3, 4, or 5 on a self-actualization level, esteem needs level, love and belongingness level, just because you've got a roof over your head and food in your belly. It's not enough. I'm telling you, it's not enough. When I was young growing up, they told me that's just be grateful you've got X and Y. But as you're going to learn in the coming episodes, sometimes life can be needlessly harder on the higher levels than the lower levels. Not physically, but mentally. Messed up. It's messed up. You can try and get a jump on this. The blog has already been written. Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, The Comfort Ladder. What's the last one? The Luxury Trap. I'm terrible. Got to get better, podcast host. But that's the blog, www.withjoewehbe.com. Put some stuff on Instagram too sometimes. I've got to remind you that is an avenue as well. But the full episodes only on the podcast and YouTube. But the blog format does give us the crux we work around for all that. That's where the content goes first. Just remember, figure out where you sit on Maslow's and maybe open other people's eyes to it so you can get more perspective on their life. Wouldn't that be a nice thing to do for your friends and family? After all, the best way to open 1,000 doors for you is to concentrate on opening doors for others. This has been the With Joe Wehbe podcast. Thank you, and see you again tomorrow.